Welcome to my garden. GinGee GoodEarth production, numeral 6, part 10. We will be doing a reading on the Kennedy book, Wits and Wisdom, on the conquest of space. We're going to also read a universal history of the United States of America, starting on page 78 and ending on page 81. Today's date is June 21st, 2020. And again, I welcome you to the GinGee GoodEarth production, and we will begin. Let's focus. Continuing with the reading on the cultural heritage of the Western Pennsylvania pioneers, written by Skip Cullington. When the 18th century is examined in the light of succeeding years, a more attractive picture emerges even as early as 1750. A new world was in process of formation under the rags and tatters of decadent feudalism. The rediscovery of ancient humanism, the stimulus of overseas expansion, and the ever-widening application of scientific discoveries were ushering in a new era in human history. Probably the basic fact in this transformation was the emergence of the middle class, with its interest in commercial and industrial activities and in science, art, and letters. Before the century was over, the middle class had definitely seized control of affairs and was molding the world to suit itself. Feudalism as an economic system was given way to capitalism, and the bourgeois governments were taking the places of the old despotisms, benevolent or malevolent. The expansion of commerce and the Industrial Revolution were making possible a division of labor that was ultimately to bring about higher standards of living. The immediate effects upon the common people were often far from beneficial. However, agricultural and handicraft workers were thrown out of employment, and even those who found places in the new factory system had to work long hours, more than 8 hours a day, sometimes 9 or 12, through the night, for bare substances. It's not strange that many of them turned their eyes toward America, where the opportunities of developing a new country would enable them to find employment. We'll continue reading that edition. Next, we will read The Wit and Wisdom of John F. Kennedy, Chapter 4, on the Conquest of Space. Now it is time for a great new American enterprise, time for this nation to take a clearly leading role in space achievement, which in many ways may hold the key to our future on Earth. Our aim is not simply to do and be the first on the moon any more than Charles Lindbergh's real aim was to be the first to Paris. His aim was to develop the techniques of our own country and other countries in the field of air and the atmosphere. And our objective in making this effort, which we hope will place one of our citizens on the moon, is to develop in a new frontier of science, commerce, and cooperation the position of the United States and the free world. January 11th, 1962. We set sail on this new sea because there is new knowledge to be gained and new rights to be won, and they must be won and used for the progress of all people. September 12th, 1962. This generation does not intend to founder in the backwash of the coming age of space. We mean to be a part of it. We mean to lead it. For the eyes of the world now look into space, to the moon, and to the planets beyond. And we have vowed that we shall not see it governed by a hostile flag of conquest, but by a banner of freedom and peace. We have vowed that we shall not see space filled with weapons of mass destruction, but with instruments of knowledge and understanding. September 12, 1962. We have with us today the nation's #1 television performer, who I think on last Friday morning secured the largest rating of any morning show in recent history. Ceremony honoring Alan Shepard, May 8, 1961. The nation has tossed its cap over the wall of space, and we have no choice but to follow it. Whatever the difficulties, they will be overcome. Whatever the hazards, they must be guarded against. With the help of all those who labor in space endeavor, with the help and support of all Americans, we will climb this wall with safety and speed, and we shall then explore the wonders on the other side. November 21st, 1963. It is, I think, a source of concern to us all that the first dogs carried around in outer space were not named Rover and Fido, but instead were named Belka and Streka. September 5th, 1960. I do not say that we should or will go unprotected against the hostile misuse of space any more than we go unprotected against the hostile use of land or sea, but I do say that space can be explored and mastered without feeding the fires of war, without repeating the fires of war, without repeating the mistakes that man has made in extending his wit around this globe of ours. September 12, 1962. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do other things, not because that they are easy, but because they are hard, because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills, because that knowledge is one that we are willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one which we intend to win. September 12, 1962. The chimpanzee who was flying in space took off at 10:08. He reports that everything is going perfectly and working well. November 29, 1961. Every time you scientists make a major invention, we politicians have to invent a new institution to cope with it. And almost invariably, these days, and happily, it must be an international institution. The ocean, the atmosphere, outer space belong not to one nation or one ideology, but to all mankind. October 22, 1963. Let it be clear that I'm asking the Congress and the country to accept a firm commitment to a new course of action, a course which will last for many years and carry very heavy costs. If we are to go only halfway or reduce our sights in the face of difficulty, it would be better not to go at all. There is no strife, no prejudice, no national conflict in outer space as yet. Its hazards are hostile to us all. Its conquest deserves the best all mankind, and its opportunity for peaceful cooperation may never come again. But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why? 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? September 12, 1962. This is not merely a race. Space is open to us now, and our eagerness to share in its meaning is not governed by the efforts of others. We go into space because whatever mankind must undertake, free men must fully share. The new horizons of outer space must not be riven by the old, bitter concepts of imperialism and sovereign claims. The old reaches of the universe must not become the new arena of an even colder war. So, sovereign claims. Okay, and this book, again, is quite small. It's a miniature book, The Wit and Wisdom of John F. Kennedy, and I have read many chapters in the previous videos, so you can look at that yourself. And again, you can watch the picture show in the background. It's museums of New York City and the Pittsburgh region. And I welcome everybody today. And now we're going to go ahead through the look and see glasses. We're going to start page 78. And I'll zoom in on the picture show. And we'll get started. This is, again, chapter 4, page 78. And usually I always backtrack a page or two so that everyone stays on board with the novel. And again, this is a historical novel dating back to 1450 events to 1830, Universal History of the United States of America. As we begin on page 78, scarcely had the colonies recovered from their calamities before new and more terrible alarm and destruction presented themselves to all the colonies of New England. On the 1st of July, 1674, the Duke of York commissioned Sir Edmund Andros to be governor of New York and all New England. Sir Edmund was a tyrant over the people, but New England refused to submit to this man as their ruler. It was soon discovered that Sir Edmund Andros was about to make a hostile invasion on the colony and to demand its surrender. Detachments from the military were sent to New London and Saybrook. Captain Thomas Bull of Hartford commanded the party at Saybrook. There's a Bull Street in Savannah, and if you go down Bull Street, downtown Savannah, it will take you to 10 different square courts, and you have to circle them. So that pathway is not a straight path to the outer city. It's more time consuming because you have to completely circle a square with your car, but the street is named Bull Street. So think of me if you're on Bull Street, Savannah. You do get to see a lot of the historic mansions in Savannah and so forth, so it is quite nice. And every square is actually a park setting with the beautiful magnolia and oak trees. So, again, about the 9th of July, 1675, the people of that town were surprised by the appearance of Major Andros with an armed force in the Sound, making directly for the fort. The fort was soon manned, and militia called out for its defense. At the moment Captain Bull arrived, which gave them fresh courage, on the 11th, Major Andros hoisted the king's flag on board and demanded a surrender of the fortress and town. Captain Bull raised His Majesty's colors and prepared for defense. The major did not like to fire on the king's colors and thought it would be a bloody affair to reduce the town by force. Early in the morning of the 12th, Sir Edmund desired to be admitted on shore. Captain Bull met the major at his landing and requested a treaty. The major rejected the proposal and commanded in His Majesty's name that the Duke Patten and his commission should be read. Captain Bull, in His Majesty's name, commanded him to forbear reading. When his clerk attempted to proceed, Captain Bull again repeated his command with such energy that it convinced the major it was not safe to proceed. The captain then acquainted him that he had an address from the assembly and read his protest. Governor Andros, pleased with his bold and soldier-like appearance, said, "What is your name?" He replied, "My name is Bull, sir." "Bull," said the governor, "it is a pity your horns are not dipped with silver." Finding he could make no impression upon the people, he soon sailed for New York. In the year 1675 began the famous Indian War, which was termed King Philip's War. The leading one was Philip Scatcomb, of the tribe living within the boundary of Plymouth, Rhode Island. His brother, being suspected of plotting against the whites, was seized by the detachment of soldiers. Philip ever sought to revenge the treatment of his brother. He succeeded in forming a confederacy able to send into action between 3,000 and 4,000 warriors. The immediate cause of the war was the execution of 3 Indians by the English, whom Philip had excited to murder one Susamin, an Indian missionary. Susamin, being friendly to the English, had informed them that Philip, with several tribes, were plotting their destruction. The execution of these Indians roused the anger of Philip, who immediately armed his men and commenced hostilities. Their first attack was made June 24th upon the people of Swansea, in Plymouth Colony, as they were returning home from the public worship on a day of humiliation and prayer under the apprehension of the approaching war. 8 or 9 persons were killed. The country was immediately alarmed, and the troops of the colony flew to the defense of the Swansea. On the 28th, the company of a horse and company of foot, with 110 volunteers from Boston, joined the Plymouth forces at Swansea. The next morning, an attack was made upon some of Philip's men, who were pursued, and 5 or 6 of them killed. This resolute conduct of the English made a deep impression on the enemy. Philip, with his forces, left Mount Hope